Welcome back. In today's video, we're going to be delving through my tiered quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end rankings for week 10. Keep in mind two things, please. Players who have a bye this week, they don't actually have a game scheduled, are not going to be included in these rankings. So if you see a player missing and they fit under that criteria, that's why. Another thing to keep in mind is players who played on Thursday night are also not going to be included in these rankings. So without further ado, let's get into the elite quarterback tier. I have Allen, Jackson, Herbert, and Dart. Jackson Dart has been a godsend for the Giants. He's been a consistent QB1 most weeks. He's getting about 50 rushing yards and more often than not a rushing touchdown pretty much every game while remaining relatively turnover free despite his situation. I think he is a smash start. And there are reports of 20 to 25 mile an hour winds in Chicago, but at the same time, I don't really trust the weather people to predict things accurately much at all in advance of real time. At least where I live, it's very, very poor in terms of their accuracy. So keep in mind, though, that could be a complicating factor in the vertical passing game for both the Giants and Chicago. And the next year, I have Caleb, Mayfield, Hurts, and Goff. With Goff, I think this is a smash spot for him against Washington. I think basically everyone in the Lions offense that you project to get volume is going to be a very good start this week. And the next year, I have Jones, Stafford, and Darnold. Matthew Stafford is playing at a near, or even, dare I say, MVP level this season. I think this is a smash spot, and I really like Adams and Puka Nacua this week. And the next year, I have Love, McCarthy, Fields, and Mariota. I want to mention Justin Fields here. I think that with the departure of essentially all their star power on defense, they are going to need to throw and score a substantial amount of points. So I think that he is going to get quite a bit of volume on the ground and through the air as they look to keep up. You could definitely say they're tanking, but at the same time, they're going to try to win games, right? And the next year, I have Brissett, Rodgers, Young, Gabriel, and Penix. I want to mention Dylan Gabriel. The Jets lost their star defensive tackle and cornerback. This is a potential smash spot, at least compared to how the matchup would have been previously with all that star power on defense. So I do think that he's a solid upside play this week. But at the same time, there are plenty of quarterbacks I would still rather prefer and trust over him. And the next year, I have Mac Jones just by himself. It's a tough matchup against the Rams, but I still think that he's a substantial upgrade over anyone lower than him. And in the final tier, I have Tua, T-Law, Mills, and Shuck. I want to mention Trevor Lawrence. He's going to be without Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter this game in a brutal matchup against Houston. I would avoid starting him at all costs if possible. Moving on to the tiered running back rankings. In the elite tier, I have McCaffrey, Taylor, and Cook. I want to mention James Cook here. It would not shock me if he finishes with around 125 to 150 rushing yards and multiple touchdowns this game. I think this is a smash spot for him. In the next tier, I have Bijan, Achane, Dowdle, and Williams. I want to mention Rico Dowdle and Kyren Williams. Rico Dowdle has been awesome ever since he claimed the starting position with Chuba Hubbard out a couple weeks ago. I think this is a smash spot against New Orleans. They should handle New Orleans pretty easily, and I do think he gets a good amount of volume in this game. And with Kyren Williams in a full PPR setting, he scored 31 against San Fran this past time, including multiple touchdowns. This is a smash spot for him. And the next year, I have Jacobs, Gibbs, Barkley, and Judkins. I want to mention Quinshon Judkins here. He faces off against the Jets, and you're going to see a common theme with anyone playing the Jets, in my opinion. They just gave away Quinnen Williams and Sauce Gardner. That's the heart and soul and the star power of that defense. I think they are going to be winning this game, and I do think they're going to give Judkins a substantial amount of volume. In the next tier, I have Brees, Warren, White, Henderson, and Henry. With TreVeyon Henderson, I know people were a little bit disappointed that he didn't have a massive game this past week, but it was a very tough matchup against Atlanta. He looked good on film, in my opinion, and I do think that he is going to, cement himself as long as he's getting a decent amount of volume as, a mid to high end RB2, but this is a plus matchup, and I do think he sees a good bit of work in the passing game. In the next tier, I have Montgomery, Swift, Jones, Etienne, and Vidal. I want to mention Dave Montgomery here. I do think this is a smash spot as well. I do think they're going to be scoring plenty of points. I think they're going to look to ground and pound, and they're going to win through the air as well. So I do think that he is an especially good start, even though he's, kind of the RB2 on his own team. In the next year, I have Monangai, Marks, Walker, DeMarcado, and Tyron Tracy. I want to mention Monangai here. This past week, they were without DeAndre Swift and Roshan Johnson, making him the only back against the worst run defense in the NFL. Unfortunately, it looks like Swift, or from his perspective, it looks like Swift is going to be back. So I think they're going to split the backfield, but I do think that both can be RB2s at the same time, because I do think they're going to be beating the Giants, and it's a very good matchup. And the Giants allowed the most yards per carry in the NFL. In the next year, I have Gainwell, Charbonnet, Davis, Singletary, Algier, and Jordan Mason. I want to mention Tyler Algier. DeForest Buckner is going to be out for the Colts. He is the heart and soul of the middle of that run defense. I do think that he is a solid flex option, or if you have multiple injuries / bye weeks, I think he's a solid start in a game that I do think they have the chance to win. In the next tier and the final tier, I have Corum, Kamara, Knight, and JCM. I want to mention Blake Corum. He's been getting a little bit more run the past couple of weeks. It's a plus matchup against San Fran. I do think that he's going to be effective on the ground. And I do think he brings more juice than Kyren Williams does on the ground, even though Kyren Williams has the coaching trust and more projected volume. And I want to give a special shout out to my Patreon members. Thank you to Big Hunt, SP, Mage Jack, Infamy MTG, AOYOB, and The Dawn. Without your support, this would not be possible. As you're probably well aware if you've been watching my videos for a while, I cannot get monetized because of the film breakdowns I do, and even just the little videos I have where I have clips of plays in them. They get demonetized every single time, making it, therefore, impossible to collect any revenue. So, obviously, your support is greatly appreciated. And if you are so inclined to become a member, the perks would be you will get access to a private Discord where we have both a real life and fantasy football chat, as well as a voice chat if you just don't want to have to type a bunch of stuff. I'll also give you detailed roster breakdowns and roster reviews where we talk about the strengths and weaknesses of your team. Then we kind of break it down further by looking into the scoring settings themselves and the starting lineup requirements to help you build the best team to help you dominate for years to come. In both Dynasty and in Redraft, obviously, I'd help you with a good, solid game plan, especially if you know where you're drafting from. Then also give you detailed trade advice based on your specific league settings to help you dominate. Also give you access to private live streams and the ability to not only see videos at least one day early, but also the ability to suggest videos that you would like to be created. So if you would like to support the channel, I would really appreciate it. If not, just please like and subscribe. Let's get back to the video. And so moving on to my tiered wide receiver rankings. In the elite tier, I have Puka, JSN, Amon-Ra, St. Brown, and Davante Adams. I think both Puka and Davante Adams are absolute smash starts this week. I think both score, and I think Matthew Stafford also has a very good week. And the next tier, I have Nico, AJ Brown, Zay Flowers, and Emeka Egbuka. I want to mention with Emeka Egbuka, I would have liked this matchup a lot more for him and would have had him substantially higher, potentially as high as wide receiver 3 to 4, if Gonzalez was going to miss this game. Unfortunately, for his sake at least, it looks like Gonzalez is going to play past concussion protocol. But I still think that he's a solid start this week because he's really good and connected to Baker Mayfield. And I do think this offense is going to rebound. In the next tier, I have Olave, Devontae, Wilson, London, Jefferson, and Waddle. With Drake London, it should be a plus matchup, and it was, but they just traded for Sauce Gardner. I do think that he's going to see a lot of Drake London this week. And while I still think that he's, a low-end wide receiver 1, at least in my opinion this week, it isn't quite the matchup that it could have been. In the next tier, I have Wandale, Debo, Pittman, and McConkey, as well as Odunze and Quentin Johnson at the top right of your screen. A player I want to mention here is Michael Pittman Jr. He's going to find himself facing off against AJ Terrell. While he's been a consistent, around 20-point full PPR type of wide receiver for us, I do think that he has a very tough matchup, but I think he overcomes it to a degree. I just don't think we should be expecting, a wide receiver 1 type of game. I think he's more of a wide receiver 2 this week. In the next tier, I have MHJ, Slayton, Moore, JMO, and Rashid Shaheed. I want to mention Rashid Shaheed. He has the potential any given week in this offense with Sam Darnold reunited with Kubiak to go off. So I think that he is a very good high upside start. I just want to see, how much volume he gets initially, but I think I'm being maybe a little bit conservative even because I'm telling you, this is a fantastic fit for him. In the next tier, I have Tez, Shakir, McMillan, Metcalf, and Jacoby Myers. I want to mention Jacoby Myers. This is a brutal matchup. He's going to be facing off against either Lassiter or Stingley pretty consistently. I don't like that for him. I don't like that there's no Brian Thomas to take the top off the defense, no Travis Hunter to distract in the short passing game either. So I do think that He's going to get a good bit of volume because I think they're going to need to throw a lot, but I don't think this is the upside week that we might see in other weeks from him. And finally, we have Jennings, Diggs, Addison, Dobbs, Downs, and Zacchaeus. I want to mention Olamide Zacchaeus. I do think that he's going to get consistent work in the short passing game, and he is in a matchup that is favorable to him as well as Caleb's security blanket. And if the wind is worse than I think it is, or as bad as it's potentially projected to be, I do think that they might utilize him substantially in the short passing game, and I would be a little bit lower on Rome Odunze, who's more of their vertical X, but obviously does have a little bit more positional versatility. So keep that in mind, and I would pay attention to that right before the game start rather than, them trying to project that out in advance. And moving on to the tight end rankings. In the elite tier, I have Trey McBride by himself. I think that this is a smash spot for him against Seattle. I think they're going to need to throw, and thank goodness Jacoby Brissett is starting instead of Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray has limited this offense year after year, at least in my opinion. And Trey McBride has already scored as many touchdowns in the small sample size of games with Brissett as he has in the past 2 years, basically, with Kyler Murray. Start Trey McBride with confidence, obviously, and I think he is set to smash this week. In the next tier, I have Gadsden, Laporta, Warren, Kincaid, and Kyle Pitts. I want to mention 2 players here, Kyle Pitts and Kincaid. They both have amazing matchups. I think they are high upside options, and I think both of them score this week. In the next tier, I have Kittle, Fannin, Goddard, and Juwan Johnson. I want to mention with Juwan Johnson, with the loss of Rashid Shaheed, that only, I think, increases his weekly volume and especially his floor in this offense. I think he is a volume-driven, low-end tight end 1 this week with a chance to score in a plus matchup against Carolina. In the next tier, I have Musgrave, Likely, Taylor, Ertz, and Dalton Schultz. I want to mention Luke Musgrave here. I don't think that he's Tucker Kraft, obviously, despite being selected a round higher a couple of years ago. But I do think that they're going to give him a relatively decent amount of volume. And even though it is a tough matchup, I do think he's a solid bet to score a touchdown this week. In the next tier, I have Henry, Loveland, Otten, and Theo Johnson. With Colson Loveland, I don't think that we can expect a massive, big boom game from him every week. And while this is a plus matchup, I do think they're going to look to attack in the short passing game, as well as a couple deep shots potentially to Rome. And I don't think that we're going to see consistent tight end 1 numbers from him, but I could be wrong. And I do want to just be a little bit more conservative with him before just, having him up there with some of the more elite tight ends, even though I think he's really talented. In the final, the second to last tier, actually, I have Andrews, Njoku, and Barner. With AJ Barner, I don't think he's going to see a high volume role, but I do think that he is a good bet for a touchdown this week, and he's been a pretty good touchdown scorer. They even tried to get him, or they did get him rather, a rushing touchdown on the ground a couple weeks ago. So I do think he's a solid flyer if you just don't have any one of these elite tight ends on your roster. And then the final tier, I have Jonnu Smith and Pat Freiermuth. They just happen to rank next to each other, but it's a bad matchup. I don't really like much of anybody in the Pittsburgh Steelers offense this week because basically everyone has a brutal matchup, including Aaron Rodgers, who I'm significantly lower on this week than I would be most weeks. So where do you agree? Where do you disagree? Let me know below in the comment section if you have any more questions as well. Once again, if you would like to, feel free to subscribe to my Patreon. I'm unable to collect any revenue because I do these film breakdowns weekly. I am going to be uploading significantly more often in the near future. So look out for that. And if you do not wish to or cannot afford to, which is fine, if you could just like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment below, I'd really appreciate it. Share it with a friend. Regardless, I hope you guys smash your matchups this week. Thanks and have a good day.